Yesterday, a Beijing lab you have probably never heard of quietly dropped a 1 trillion parameter model onto Hugging Face. No press tour, no launch event, just waits. The model is called Kimi K2.6 and the headline benchmark is absurd. It scores higher than Claude Opus on the hardest real-world coding test that exists. It runs itself for half a day straight. It spawns hundreds of its own child agents, and it costs roughly a dime on the dollar compared to the American frontier. The company is Moonshot AI. The founder is Yang Zhilin. And until this week, nobody in the valley was taking them seriously. Before you roll your eyes at another Chinese frontier model drop, let me save you a scroll. This one is genuinely different. The checkpoint on Hugging Face weighs over a terabyte. It ships with a modified MIT license, which means you can run it, fork it, wrap it, and sell it. There is a thinking mode, an instant mode, a vision encoder, and a context window of 256 kilotokens that matches Claude. And the hardware ask is not totally insane. People are already running quantized versions on a pair of serious GPUs. In today's video, we will unpack how a startup that was basically dead 18 months ago just shipped the best open coding model on the planet, what the swarm architecture actually does, and the one catch nobody in the hype threads is mentioning. For context, the open weight scene looked bleak a year ago. Meta's Llama license had a giant asterisk that basically said, if you get successful enough to matter, we reserve the right to sue you. OpenAI's GPT OSS was open, but also dumb. Mistral went French and commercial. And the only other viable option was Chinese labs, which meant DeepSeek, Qwen, GLM, and Moonshot. Then this April, the open weight frontier moved 3 times in a single week. Alibaba shipped Qwen 3.6 Max. Google shipped Gemma 4, and Moonshot shipped K2.6. 3 frontier-class models in days. Local inference stopped being a compromise. It started being competitive, and the center of gravity for open-source AI quietly, permanently moved out of California. It is April 21st, and you are watching the indiehacker Code Report. So who is Moonshot? The founder is Yang Zhilin, born in Shantou, Guangdong in 1992. He topped his class at Tsinghua, then finished a Carnegie Mellon PhD in 4 years instead of 6, advised by Ruslan Salakhutdinov, the same researcher who now runs Apple's AI shop. He co-authored Transformer-XL and XLNet with Yann, LeCun, and Yoshua Bengio while doing internships at Google Brain and Meta. So when the Valley dismissed him, the Valley was dismissing one of their own. He came home and co-founded Moonshot with his Tsinghua bandmates from a campus rock group called SWE. Yes, this trillion-parameter model exists because a drummer started a company. The corporate name Moonshot comes from Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, Yang's favorite album. He launched on the 50th anniversary of its release because founders in China are also nerds. Moonshot rode the Chinese chatbot hype wave and then hit a cliff when the Kimi app stopped growing. Most of the American tech press wrote them off. What they missed was that Yang pivoted hard into open weights. K2 dropped in July, K2.5 in January, K2.6 yesterday, exactly as a leaked Reddit post predicted a fortnight ago. That leak was dismissed at the time as classic trust me bro energy. Today, the same commenters are apologizing. Here is what makes K2.6 different under the hood. It is a mixture of experts with total weights just over 1 trillion, but only around 32 billion parameters fire on any given token. The model has 384 experts, picks 8 of them each step, plus 1 shared expert that is always on. It uses multi-head latent attention, 61 transformer layers, SWE-glue activations, and a 400 million parameter vision encoder called Moonvid bolted on the side. The context window matches Anthropic. The tokenizer vocabulary is huge, larger than most Western models, but the headline feature is something they call the agent swarm. You give K2.6 a task, the orchestrator breaks it into subtasks, and it spawns up to 300 parallel child instances of itself, coordinating across 4,000 steps. Each child has its own tools, each child reports back, the supervisor reconciles. In one published case study, a swarm ran for 13 hours straight, executed over 1,000 tool calls, iterated a dozen optimization strategies, and rewrote 4,000 lines of code without a human touching the keyboard. The result? A financial matching engine running roughly 2 times faster. That is not a chatbot, that is a programmable engineering team. Okay, but does it actually work? Here are the benchmark numbers, and remember these are self-reported by Moonshot. So add salt. On SWE-Bench Pro, the hardest real-world repository fix benchmark, K2.6 scores 58.6%, beating Claude Opus at 53 and edging past GPT 5.4. On SWE-Bench Verified, it lands at 80.2, basically tied with Opus and Gemini 3.1 Pro. On Humanity's last exam with tools, it hits 54, higher than every other model tested. On LiveCodeBench version 6, it scores 89.6. Vercel ran K2.6 against its own internal Next.js benchmark and reported a 50% jump over K2. Besitten, Olama, and Factory.ai all confirm the upgrade is real. But here is where the story gets really spicy. The price on OpenRouter K2.6 costs 60 cents per million input tokens, $2.80 on output. Claude Opus costs $5.25 out. That is roughly a 9-fold price cut for equivalent coding performance, and the weights are free if you have the hardware to host yourself. Now, the catch benchmarks are Moonshot's own numbers. No independent academic lab has reproduced the headline scores yet. On pure reasoning and hard math, K2.6 still trails. AME math scores 96 versus GPT at 99. Vision, it loses to Gemini, and if you're a big enterprise with over 100 million monthly users, the modified MIT license requires you to visibly credit Kimi K2.6 inside your product. A carve-out aimed squarely at OpenAI and Anthropic's corporate customers. Here is the honest take. Moonshot did not build a better model than the American frontier on every axis. But they built one that is frontier class on the benchmarks most builders actually care about, released the weights under a usable license, and priced the hosted version at a fraction of what Anthropic and OpenAI charge. If you're running an agent product burning $100 a day on Opus, swap in K2.6 and that bill drops to 10. If you're privacy sensitive, you can self-host on a pair of serious GPUs. And if you're just watching the industry, understand this. The open weight frontier is no longer a nostalgia project, it is a working thread. The full breakdown on Kimi, the Chinese open model wave, and every other indiehacker story from this week is in the indiehacker newsletter. Link in the description. See you in the next one.